All right, welcome back to the channel. So, woke up this morning, saw videos from different people, and Errol Spence Jr. out in the social media world is being trashed for demanding a fight with Canelo Alvarez at the same time, and being trashed for what he said about Terrence Crawford, while at the same time, Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford are fighting tomato cans for a living. Let's talk about this backlash Errol Spence Jr. is getting about trying to make great fights while people defend cherry pickers and duckers. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So first and foremost, let me tell you that this is most certainly my opinion and you can have yours. However, I have been listening to a lot of conversations that I think are absolutely stupid, and I also think that they are counterproductive to boxing, and I think that if the people that were saying them thought about them for 30 seconds in not a neutral type of way, but just think, like literally think, you will see what is going on, and there is no way that Errol Spence Jr. deserves anything but credit for what this guy is trying to do. That's my opinion, and I'm going to support my opinion, and I promise you, there ain't no way you're going to get up out of it. Let's explain. First things first, there is no boxer in the world that is undefeatable. None. If you put any particular fighter in with the wrong guy, your fighter is going to lose, period. That's how boxing works. I do not care how great Canelo Alvarez is. There is a boxer out on this planet that will smash him. They may be because they're too big. It may be because they're small and too fast. But there's somebody out there that got Canelo Alvarez's name. Believe it. Now, I know who that is, by the way. I know the person. That person's name is Arthur Beterbiev. Canelo Alvarez will make no effort whatsoever to go up to the weight class that he said that he can fight in and fight Arthur Beterbiev. Do you know why that is? Because Arthur Beterbiev will beat the brakes off of Canelo Alvarez. His pressure is too much. He's too big. He's too strong. He's very, very aggressive, and he's a very, very skilled fighter. And if Canelo Alvarez is lucky enough to get out of that fight, he may not come out of that fight the same fighter. Why do I use that example? Because there is, again, no fighter in boxing that cannot be set up in a fight and lose. I watched Canelo Alvarez in these tapes that people said he had where he was sparring this heavyweight Frankie Sanchez. I saw the sparring match. Frankie Sanchez pulled every punch he threw at Canelo. Get out of here. That ain't no serious sparring match where he's fighting somebody he thinks he can handle. Frankie Sanchez will knock Canelo Alvarez, beat him half to death, okay? But we get in our heads that when we see these fighters winning certain fights and doing extra special with guys that they can beat, that they are somehow undefeatable to the rest of the boxing world, and that is not the case. Which is why it is essential that fighters fight each other so you know how the style will work out. I've done other videos where I talked about matchmakers, and matchmakers, one of their primary jobs is to ensure that what I just described does not happen without them knowing it. Like, we're not just going to throw Canelo in there with Arthur Beterbiev. Are you crazy? You think I'm a terrible matchmaker or something? Arthur Beterbiev is going to cause Canelo Alvarez all kind of problems with his activity, with his size, with his strength. No, I'm not going to do that. And that is what the matchmaker and the promoter thinks while still selling to you the idea that these guys are undefeatable. Let's start the conversation with that truism. So, let's now talk about the fact that Errol Spence Jr. is wanting to fight Canelo Alvarez, and he also said that he wants to fight Terrence Crawford, but that Terrence Crawford needs to take reasonable money for it, right? Which is, I'm the A side, I'm out here doing the work, I'm out here fighting all these fights and making this fight interesting. No, I'm taking most of the money. Now, Canelo, you're the big cash cow. You've been making boxing interesting. I just want to fight you. That's what Errol Spence Jr., who just came off of a major car accident in a fight with a Hall of Fame candidate in Danny Garcia, that's what he did a week later. Got out of his bed, left his camp, went over there to San Antonio to get on camera and say he wants a Canelo Alvarez fight, and he was attacked for it. No, I'm sorry, he can never make that weight. Meanwhile, Canelo Alvarez is a champion at 160. He's a champion at 160. You cannot tell me that Errol Spence Jr., who is the WBC champion at 147 pounds, cannot move up to fight for the 160-pound WBC belt, right? Which Canelo was supposed to be the champion of. Or the WBA belt, which Canelo Alvarez is supposed to be the champion of. Now, somebody explain to me, why doesn't a guy at 147 deserve to fight a guy at 160 who's at 160? And why, or better question, why does nobody at 160 deserve a fight with a champion that is weighing 160? Either Canelo needs to drop those belts and let somebody else fight for him, or he needs to defend the belts. And that's just what belts are supposed to do, my fellow Canelo Alvarez fans. But this is what Canelo Alvarez did this weekend. He fought a tin can bum that you knew he was gonna win. What did he do the fight before last? He fought an alcoholic tin can plotting bum named Sergey Kovalev, who was always overhyped, and beat him. So what? He's big and he's slow, and it's the same doggone playbook that he would have to use to beat Kovalev. Is the same playbook he has to use to beat Callum Smith. It's the same playbook he needed to beat Rocky Fielding. It's the same playbook that he's going to use for the next tall, plotting fighter that only has a jab, right hand, left hook, basic European style that he will beat all day, every day. Canelo Alvarez is not going to fight Artur Beterbiev. He's not going to fight Jermall Charlo. He's not going to fight Demetrius Andrade. He's not going to fight Errol Spence, and nobody's asking him to do it, but yet the people that support him want you to celebrate him. No, I can tell you that Canelo Alvarez is a great fighter. If it was not for Canelo Alvarez testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs, I would have had Canelo Alvarez as my number one pound for pound. I did have him as my number one pound for pound, and it would have never changed if he had not tested positive for clenbuterol. And you can be as big a fan of Canelo Alvarez as you want. That drug test is not going to go away. So since the second fight with Gennady Golovkin, which was postponed originally because he tested positive for clenbuterol, he fought Gennady Golovkin, and the only other halfway decent fight he's had since then was Daniel Jacobs, who also fits into that relatively slow-footed, come forward, not going to move a lot style. Now, does that mean that Canelo Alvarez is not a great fighter, is not a good fighter, doesn't deserve the money, isn't the big cash cow? No, he's all of those things. However, he is not fighting anyone, and you know it. None of y'all believe that Callum Smith was some real fight that was in danger. And everybody where he had some risk, and everybody that acted like that was the truth was lying. Every one of them. Dave Caldwell in the UK was lying. Johnny Nelson in the UK was lying. Anybody that said that was lying, because I do not know as much about the tactics in the ring as Caldwell does or Johnny Nelson, and I saw it from 50 miles away. There's no way that they didn't see that fight. Nobody thought Callum Smith was losing that, and nobody thought that any of the fights that Terrence Crawford has had since period was he going to lose. So that's person number one. The guy that you think that Errol is the problem because he wants to move up 2 weight classes to get a shot at the guy that they say is the pound for pound number one. He's done everything that he needed to do to get it, because what is Errol doing? Errol is fighting Danny Garcia, who is a Hall of Fame candidate and in his prime. Sean Porter, Hall of Fame candidate who is in his prime. Mikey Garcia, Hall of Fame candidate in his prime. Kell Brook, Hall of Fame candidate in his prime. You cannot say that about anybody that Terrence Crawford has fought. None, except for what, Amir Khan? No. Kell Brook, yeah, he was, but not on anything that he's done recently. And what is Errol Spence Jr. saying to Terrence Crawford to try to make that fight? Hey, man, I'm the pay-per-view star. I am. And that's just a fact. He is the pay-per-view star. Just like with Canelo, he is the big draw. It's just what it is. You want Terrence Crawford, who is not fighting anybody at all. You're blaming Errol, who is fighting somebody, who is doing the pay-per-views, who is doing the numbers, who came off of a car accident and jumped right back in the ring with top-notch competition. Top-notch competition, by the way, that Terrence Crawford has turned down. Now, while we love to talk about the, what he said today versus what he said yesterday and try to catch, get gotcha moments, right? We got all the big Errol Spence gotcha moments. See, I told you, gotcha. Errol Spence said that he's the boss and that if I want to fight him, I got to take 60-40. I guess this fight's not going to happen, but guess what? It's Errol Spence's fault. Well, let's think for a second. What if the fight doesn't happen? What is Errol going to go do? And what is Terrence going to go do? If Errol does not get the Terrence Crawford fight or the Danny Garcia fight, Terrence Crawford fight or the Canelo Alvarez fight or the Manny Pacquiao fight, do you know what he's going to do then? He's more than likely going to go fight another Hall of Fame candidate, either in a rematch with Sean Porter, which will be better than any fight that Terrence Crawford has had in his career, or he'll go fight somebody like Keith Thurman, which is also a better fight than Terrence Crawford has ever had in his entire career. So let's wrap this up and let me explain exactly what my point is. And then you guys can retort my point. I do not care that Canelo Alvarez is number one pound for pound. I can give it to him. I do not care if Terrence Crawford is the number one pound for pound. I can give that to him. I don't care if you think Errol Spence Jr. is ducking Terrence Crawford. I can give you that point and say Terrence Crawford is ducking him. I can give you your point on Canelo Alvarez and say Canelo Alvarez doesn't need to be bothered with Errol Spence. But what is Canelo Alvarez going to do if he doesn't fight Jermall Charlo or Errol Spence Jr.? He's going to fight no damn body. Another bum that is going to plod forward, and he is barely, and Canelo's barely going to have to break a sweat to beat him. And what is Terrence Crawford going to do next? Since the great Errol Spence Jr., who's wrong about everything, was proven wrong, right? And now that the fight's not going to happen because Errol ducked, what's going to happen now with Terrence Crawford? He's going to go fight a bum, okay? So no matter what the solution is, whatever you guys are thinking out there, here's what's going to happen. If the Terrence Crawford's next fight is going to be against a bum, Errol Spence Jr.'s fight is going to be against a Hall of Fame contender or candidate, and Canelo Alvarez, more than likely, slightly less chance of it than Terrence Crawford, but still a significant chance, is Canelo Alvarez is going to go fight somebody that ain't got no chance of causing him any problem whatsoever and might just be called, or referred to as rather, a Euro bum. But that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think, and with that, I'm out. Peace.